Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi, Earlies. We have everybody here ready for the presentation. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so thank you everybody for coming out for today's webinar. My name's Kathleen Wong and I'm from TGO Consulting, and I'm pleased to have Ariela Fontanez with me here today. She is the technical consultant for Nolan Business Solutions, which is one of our Microsoft Dynamics GP partners. And she's here with me today to show you how to enhance your GP solution with intercompany postings. So before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. All your phones will be on mute as to reduce any background noise, but if you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to put them into the GoToWebinar interface, and we'll be reading them out at the end of our presentation. So for the next 45 minutes, we'll introduce who TGO is and who Nolan Business is, go through a demo of the intercompany posting module, and then answer any questions that you may have. So sorry, there's a next slide, please.
So I went too fast.
Okay, it's okay. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with TGO, we have been financial systems specialists for the past 27 years, and we guarantee all of our work at a fixed price. In the ERP space, we have been a GP partner since 1994, and we're always looking for ways to help our clients enhance their systems and improve their bottom line with solutions like Nolan Business. So without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Aralise.
Yep. Thank you. My name is Arilis Fontanes. I'm a technical consultant at Nolan Business Solutions. We're headquartered in the UK. In the UK, we're a partner and an ISB. In the US, we're only an ISB since 1994. Our US office is in Boulder, but we also have other locations in Canada, Australia, UK, as I mentioned before, and of course, Boulder. I'm not from any of those places. The solution that we're going to be seeing today is going to be intercompany postings. We also have some other solutions for intercompany pop-to-sop and also advanced bank reconciliation. If you want to know more about the other two solutions, just let me know at the end, and I can definitely schedule a demo about those two. Okay, so we're going to be talking about intercompany postings, or ICP, and I'm going to be assuming that you're already in GP and that you're using the regular intercompany module that GP has. So I will be identifying the main differences between GP and ICP. Okay, so the first advantage is that you can auto-post transactions in the destination companies. What that means is that once you post a transaction in company A, we will create the batch and post it in companies B, C, and D, or in as many databases as you may have. Also, it has a powerful draw-by capability. What that means is that when you log in into the destination company, you will be able to see the transaction that originated in the source without having to change login information. And I will show you an example about that one. We can also void a transaction in the source, and it will void all the way through the destination companies, so you don't have to manually fix it in each of the databases. The fourth one right here, what that means is that you can do any kind of intercompany transaction, basically anywhere where you can use a GL account. So you're not limited to GL and AP transactions. You can do GL, AP, AR, bank transactions, bank transfers, and even payroll if you wanted to. And finally, I will be showing you an example of a bank transfer when you have to move cash from one database to the other. We have a bank transfer window which will update the cash account, the intercompany account, and the checkbooks in the destination. And I emphasize the checkbooks in case that you're using regular GP's reconciliation tool, because you need that checkbook to be updated. If you use the regular bank transfer window that comes with GP, you are not going to get that checkbook updated. Okay? Okay, so some other advantages that you may get if you're using Integration Manager, Analytical Accounting, both are supported, so you can use it along with Intercompany Postings. We also have an audit verification window, and I will show you that once we do the example. And in the case that you have a AR for cash receipts, we have that also for intercompany. Okay? So I will minimize this, and I will actually go ahead and jump into an example. I just want to clarify that we don't change the way that the GP windows look. So they will look like regular GP for the most part. So I always like to show you how the setup looks like, so you understand the logic behind it, because you're not going to see it at first glance when you look at the GP window. Okay? So all of our menus for intercompany postings are going to be under Financial. I will go to Setup and then Intercompany Postings. This is a setup window for one of the methods that we have. We have two different ways to do intercompany transactions. For today, I will only focus on one. But just to let you know, we also have a different method to do intercompany transactions besides the one that I'm going to be showing today. So I have many relationships here. However, I will just show you one so we can concentrate on just one account. Okay. So one way to look at this intercompany account setup window is the first line that you see here are all accounts that exist in Fabricam. And Fabricam is going to be my source company, meaning that this company will initiate the intercompany transaction. In the second line, I will have accounts that exist in my ICP 11 destination company. Okay. Another detail that you might need to know here is how my account structure looks like. My middle segment represents my natural account. So 6510 is going to be a phone expense. And then my last segment represents the database that I'm in. So 01, ICP 11. 02, my Canadian company. 00, Fabricam. So why do I say that? Because all of my accounts in Fabricam, my source, right now they end in 00. However, I created a new GL account in my source in Fabricam to become my trigger. So it's 651001. So that's how I identify it, because it ends in something else besides 00. You don't have to have the same kind of logic. It's just my example today. Okay. So the trigger will initiate the intercompany transaction, and what I do is that I link it to a different database, ICP 11, and then I select the destination account that I really want to hit in that database, which is 651001. So even though these two accounts, they look the same, the trigger in my source and then the destination account, they are not the same because they exist in different databases. The one that I'm highlighting right now is just the destination account that I use, the destination account in my destination company. And then the trigger account is the GL account in Fabricam in my source to initiate this transaction. This trigger will never have a balance. So it's kind of like a dummy account because it zeroes out with this source account. So I have it twice. Okay? The real balance will go here. I pre-map that, and I also pre-map the due to and the due from. Okay? So we have the due to and the due from here. We also have the destination account, but in order to use that destination account, I need to create a trigger account that will zero out itself at the end. Let me show you this. So the trigger method increases your share of accounts in the source company, not in the destination, only in the source. I say that because before in Fabricam, my source, I only had one phone expense account for corporate 651000, but I added two extra accounts that will represent my other two databases, 01 and 02. Okay. Those accounts, the ones that are 01, 02, 03, will never have a balance because they are trigger accounts. So that's one of the methods. The other method that we have is only a mapping of the due to and the due from. It doesn't have the destination account, but it also doesn't require triggers. So I will minimize that. The example that I will be doing today, it would involve a phone expense bill that I will split among the different databases that I have. So I will split it among Fabrica, my source, ICP 11, and my Canadian company here. I use this Canadian database because this is in Canadian dollars and this is in US dollars, so you will be able to see multi-currency. I will minimize that. And most people use this for AP transactions. So I will go ahead and do an example with that. But as I mentioned before, you can use it anywhere where you can use a GL account. Do we have questions at this point? I know that you're muted, but just in case, I'm not looking at the chat.
There's no questions at the moment.
Okay. Okay, so this is in my AP window. As I mentioned before, we don't change the way that the GP windows look. So I will put this in a batch. The description, I will just say trigger. Okay, and then I will select the vendor here. So far, this is just data entry. If you have integration manager, of course, you don't have to do this part. And let's say that we're going to be splitting 700. With ICP, you don't have to check the intercompany box. That's for regular GP. So you can go straight down to distributions. And you will have the ability to default the purchase accounts in the vendor card. So that's what I did here. So I have my expense account for Fabricam, and then each of the triggers that will represent my other two databases. So all I have to do here is to split the amounts. I will put 200, 300, and then 200 in here. Okay. We also have the ability to put some kind of comment in the distribution reference line, and then that comment will be carried over to the destination company too. Okay. And I can have a different description for the different companies that I have. So I have a description for ICP 11 and then a different description for my Canadian. That's one option. You also have the option to have the same description for all the companies that you have in the transaction. And that description will be whatever you type in here. Okay. In my setup, I will have the individual descriptions. So this is the trigger method. It is really automated. I don't have to do anything else. So once the transaction hits account 651001, it will be a debit to that trigger. What will happen is whatever I have in the setup. So it will debit the trigger, it will credit the trigger, so it will have a zero balance. It will go ahead and debit the expense account in ICP 11. It will credit the due to account in ICP 11, and it will debit the due from in Fabricam. So all of that is predefined. So all I have to do here is to click OK. I will save it, and I will actually post a batch. This will respect whatever setups you have in GP regarding post to and post through. I am post through. The first report that we're going to get is going to be the AP journal. However, I will go ahead and close this one because intercompany posting happens once it hits the GL. So you will see it in the next screen. Okay, so this is the transaction that we just did. Let me make it bigger. So I have in Fabricam, I have a debit to the expense account, I have a debit to each of the triggers, and then I have a credit to accounts payable. Okay. Then a second entry will happen automatically, in which it will credit those two triggers for the same amount, so they will have a zero balance, and then it will debit each of the due from accounts. Okay, let's close that, and you will see that in the screen after the one that comes next. So I talked before about another verification window, so this is a confirmation that we provide to let you know that the transactions were successfully created and posted in each of the databases. So when you log into ICP 11, you should be looking for journal entry 1013, and if you log into My Canadian, then it will be 559. The corresponding journal reference number in Fabricam will be this one, 5187. So 1013, 559. This is the second entry that I was talking about, in which I'm crediting the trigger and then I debit the due from. Same thing for My Canadian. I credit the trigger, I debit the due from. So that's what happens in Fabricam. So if I switch databases and I go to, let's say, ICP 11, that transaction should be already posted. So what I will do is that I will go straight to Financial, Inquiry, and then I will look it up by the expense account number in that database. So ICP 11 is 01 at the end. So I will go Financial Inquiry Detail, and the expense account number is 6510-01. If I scroll down, the transaction for today is this one. So I know that it's posted because it's showing in here, the 1013. If I click on the journal entry link, I can see what was posted on this side, which is a debit to the expense account and a credit to the due to. I can also see the description that I typed in the other database, so that came all the way through. It also tells me in the header that this transaction originated in Fabricam and the corresponding journal reference number in that database. So that's a cross-reference. And if you click on the source document link, you will be able to see the original AP voucher without having to change login information. So you can see that I am logging ICP 11, but this transaction originated in Fabricam, and I can even see the original distribution. Okay, so that's what we call a drill back. I will close this. If I void a transaction, I will void it from the source, and it will void all the way through. Just to save time, I will not void the transaction, but I will show you one that I already voided. If I click on the journal entry link, it will tell me real quick that this is a void transaction and that the transaction was voided from Fabricam. Okay. If you guys are using SmartList, there will be more information that you can get from just using the regular SmartList, not including SmartList Builder. Of course, you can get a lot more information with that one too. So let's take a look at this. I will scroll down until we get to the transaction that I just did. Okay, it is the last one. So anywhere where you see on the top where it says originating, it will tell you more information about the intercompany transaction. Information like the document number, the voucher number, the vendor ID, those kind of things. I'm scrolling to the side so you can see it. That kind of information you cannot see with regular GP. Nolan provides more of those fields. Of course, it keeps the regular functionality that GP has of double clicking on it, and then you get to the transaction enter zone window, and with Nolan you also get to the source document. So let's close that. So I will go back to the main company. Before I do that, I'm going to do two more examples. I'm going to do an example with bank transfers, and I will do an example with fixed allocations. Before I do that, I would like to know if you guys have questions about the example that I just did. So,
I don't see any questions at the moment.
okay. Okay, so bank transfers. So if I were to do a bank transfer, I would go to Financial Transactions, Bank Transfer. Okay, this is the window. This window we do modify, so this is not exactly the same as the GP window. This has a transfer from and a transfer to side. The transfer from side, you will select the checkbook ID where you will transfer the money from. So let's say whatever checkbook you have here in Fabricam. Of course, it's linked to the cash account and the destination account on the right-hand side. Right now it says Fabricam, but that changes once I select the source intercompany account. Since I will be transferring money to ICP 11, I will select that one. And it automatically changes the destination company and the corresponding due to account. So let's say that we're going to be transferring 250, and then I select the checkbook ID where I will be transferring that money to. So this is showing me the checkbooks that I have under ICP 11. Let's put a comment in here, and I will just post it. Okay, so since this is a transfer, I will have a credit to the cash account and a debit to the due from. I will have the same transaction for the GO. Let's close it. And then the confirmation. So I will be looking for transaction 1014. And I will switch databases just to show you how it looks like. So that transfer is done. It's posted. It's created and it was posted. So I will go to Financial, Inquiry. And I could go to Detail, but this time, just to make things different, I will go to Checkbook Register. I will select the checkbook ID where I transfer my money to. And then if I scroll all the way to the end, I should see the transfer that I did today for 250. And when I click on the numbered link, I can see the original bank transfer window that is posted and originated in Fabricam. So as I mentioned before, this will be updating the checkbooks. It will be updating the intercompany account, this one, and this intercompany account, those two. And it will also be updating the cash accounts, this one, and that one, and the checkbooks, Uptown and ICP Desk. Let's close that. So fixed allocations. Some of you guys are already using GP's fixed allocations or variable allocations. And it will work the same way, so it's going to be the same kind of logic, but today I will be doing a fixed allocations example. Okay, so my fixed allocation account that I have here, and I will put two windows side by side. Just give me one moment so I can pull the other one up. Okay. Okay, so on the left-hand side, I have my fixed allocation window from GP. So this is just a regular GP window. So my account for utilities will be 6190.00. And the distribution accounts that I have below, if you noticed here, I have two triggers, 6190.01, 6190.02. So what that means is that I can use triggers in my distribution accounts for my fixed allocation accounts. So every time that it says 50% to 6190.01, it will actually go ahead and debit the trigger. It will credit the trigger. It will debit the expense account for utilities in ICP 11. It will credit the due to, and it will debit the due from in Fabricam. So everything is pretty fine when you're using triggers, and when you're using fixed allocations, it's even more predefined. So let's do that. Before I actually go ahead and do that, it will be an AP transaction too. Let me show you how I default the accounts in the vendor card. So I can go to accounts, and under purchases, if you see these three little dots, you can decide what accounts you want to default in the vendor card. So those were the accounts that you saw in my distribution window. If I don't want them, I can just uncheck those boxes. So I don't have to type in my trigger accounts. They can be there automatically. Okay? And this is the vendor that I will be using, Ace Travel, for my fixed allocations example. So let's do that. I will put this in a batch. The vendor, as I mentioned, is going to be Ace Travel. And then let's put here TDO fix. And just to make things easier, let's say that we're going to be splitting 1,000. Okay, it's going to do math a lot more easier. So I don't even have to open the distribution windows. Why? Because if it is a fixed allocations account, what that means is that what will happen is whatever I have here in my fixed allocation distribution window. So 50%, so 500, will go to 6190.01. 20%, 200, will go to 6190.02. And these other two that I haven't talked about, they are intra-company accounts. So intercompany postings works intercompany, meaning among different databases, or it works intra-company, meaning within the same database. Okay? If you want me to go into details about intra-company, let me know. But just to let you know, this is all intercompany. Inter and intra. Let's minimize that. If I open the distribution windows, you will only see one account. So that's the utilities fixed allocation accounts. I don't have to do anything, so I will just click OK, save, and post. Okay, so as I mentioned before, intercompany postings will happen at the GL level. So I can go ahead and close this one. This only tells me the utilities expense account. I want to see the distribution. So this is the distribution. So 500, 6190.01. I have 200, 20%. For my other trigger, for my Canadian company, this should say trigger, even though it says utilities Canadian, this is a trigger. And these other two are intra-company accounts. Okay, let's just ignore those two for the moment, and then a credit to AP. Let's close that. This is the confirmation, so 1015. And then the second entry, it looks complicated, it's not. Okay, so let's split it by company, these two. So I will have a credit to the trigger, so you know that you never have a balance on the trigger, and then a debit to the due from. The same thing happens on the other databases too. Let's close that. and let's see how it looks like. Okay, so I will go to financial inquiry detail. Type in that account. It was 6190.01 for utilities. So this is the transaction 1015 for today for 500. So it was posted. If I click on the journal entry link, I can see the debit to the expense account and the credit to the due to. The confirmation, it tells me that it originated in the two database and it gives me the journal reference number, and I can see the source document too and the distribution window. Okay. So far, I've done 3 examples. A regular AP transactions that you have the different purchase accounts and you get to split the amounts. I did a bank transfer, and I also did a fixed allocation example with intercompany accounts. Okay. I also showed you the smart list, the drill back capability, the auto post capability, what else? And the smart list. Anything else that you want to see today? Questions? I know that you might be typing right now, so I will just say a couple of things. We do offer free training with ICP, so it comes with 2 hours of free training. And we also offer test keys if you want to test this in your own database. All you have to do is to click on the question mark about Microsoft Dynamics GP and send us a screenshot of this window, and then we can create test keys for you. Test keys will have the full functionality of intercompany postings. The only thing that will change is that the keys will expire. For example, this is a different product, but it's the same window. Right now it says keys do not expire. If I give you keys, test keys, it will say a date in here, but you will have the full functionality of intercompany postings.
Thank you, Airlease. Maybe if you could put the contact information on the screen, and if anybody was interested in taking advantage of the 2-hour training session and or the free keys, they can contact TGO or their account executive, and we'll be sure to connect you guys and get that set up.
Yes, definitely. You can either use the training time before time. This is my contact information too, right here. Before time, meaning for testing purposes, or you can use it after for training purposes, whichever one you like. And training, maybe I didn't go over that for the setup. So let me just pull it up real quick. So the setup is really easy, it's not complicated, and training is easy too because we, as you saw, we don't change the way that the GP windows look. So we only have to go over 4 setups, the ones that you're familiar with, the intercompany account relationship. But that window you don't have to do manually. We do have a template to mass create those trigger relationships. So once I create the template and I click process, this template will fill out this window for me. Okay. And the other setup window that we have to go to is this one. It's just checking some boxes. Okay. I will pull up my information again.
So we don't have any questions at the moment, but we will stay on the webinar for a few more minutes longer. If you do happen to think of any questions later on, please feel free to contact TGO at the phone number or email address that you see on the screen, and we'll be sure to answer them.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Okay, so I just want to thank everybody for coming out this afternoon, and thank you, Nolan Business Solutions, for presenting with us. And if you have any questions, please feel free to send them along, but we will be signing off now. So have a good day.